When you load a large CSV file with thousands or millions of records into Snowflake tables using copy command, loading huge dataset or many files under your partition stage location may take a while. And to your surprise, after that wait period, the copy command fails for some silly reason. So you end up losing time as well as compute credit for that failed attempt. So next, you read the error message from your Snowflake console, go to the line number in your data file, fix it, create a next version of the file, stage it, and run the copy command to reload it again. It takes a while again, and this time another error. You create a version 3 by addressing the error in your data file, stage it, reload it, it happens again. So in this iteration, time and compute credit both are wasted, and it brings a lot of frustration, especially if the file is in compressed format and very large. What if we get a parameter in our copy command or maybe in our file format properties that help us to check if I have any error record which cannot be passed by the file format and validate them even before I load my data. So I can fix all of them and reduce data loading cycle time. More interestingly, what if my data loading had failed last night in the production environment? How can we check which all record had issues or skipped during the copy command and why? We can check how many records loaded and how many of them are skipped. But does Snowflake have any feature to check which all record failed and why and what needs to be done to fix them? So this episode of data loading will primarily focus on data validation use case before and after the data loading is done. There are many interesting tips and tricks to learn in this video to make you more proficient data developer. So stick until the end of this video to explore all of them. Welcome back to my channel Data Engineering Simplified and to this How to Load Data into Snowflake series for true data professionals like you. I am assuming that you already have SnowSQL CLI installed, else you would not be able to practice all the exercise done in this video. Download all the data files and SQL script from my website. Refer the link below in the description section. We will practice many interesting points about validation process listed in this tree map using Snowflake free trial edition. There are a lot of exciting things to be learned about data loading into Snowflake, and this playlist has already covered many important and practical use cases. And I hope they are all helping you in your day-to-day data development activities. I am in my Snowflake free trial edition and it is Snowsite web interface. And this is what we are going to do. Create a customer table called customer validation. Create a standard CSV file format. Stage the sample file using SnowSQL CLI and check the uploaded file via list command. We don't know if the sample file is having any issues or not. We will try to figure it out via validation mode. We will run the copy command and let's see what error Snowflake throws. We will rerun the same copy command by adding validation properties into the copy command, understand the result, fix the issues and try to reload. So this is the process we are going to follow. I'm going to create this customer validation table which has total 15 fields of different data types. I'm going to create this file format called CSVFF. So my table and file format both are created. Now I'm going to execute the put command from my local machine to load some sample data. So this is a 3 file. I'm not going to review the file. The file is having a header which has total 15 columns and the first file is just having 5 records. Let's connect to SnowSQL. So it is connected. I'm going to move all the files at one go and staging those files into this user stage location. Auto compress is false. Looks there is an issue. I made a correction. So all the 3 files are loaded into the environment. Let's go and check it. So this is my list command. So I can see customer 01, customer 02 and customer 03. I have specified the name that this has only one error and let's see out of 5 record which particular record set has an error, and that is what we are going to simulate through the validation process. I'm running this copy command which will load data into this customer validation table and it will pick the file from this user stage location and the name of the file is customer01.csv. and this is the file format. Let's run this copy command. So it took 3.7 seconds. Good. And here it clearly says that length exceeded. The data is not loaded because of this exceeding character. And it is clearly saying that I am having an issue in the line number 2. This particular line is having an issue. If you look into the table definition, the gender is limited to 1 character. However, the file is having more than 1 character, and that's why this load failed. Okay. What if I have to validate whether any such error record exists which does not conform to my table structure? What should I do? Now, if you look into this copy command, I have used one additional parameter called validation mode. And this validation mode takes different values: return errors, return 1 rows or n rows, and return all rows. If you add this property into a copy command, the copy command will validate the data and it will not load the data. Okay, let's run this and see the behavior. By having this validation mode, I got the error in more organized manner. Here the error is same. The user character length limit 1 exceeded. If I'm using a lot of file, then it will also indicate which file has got this data error and which particular line is having an error, which particular character is having an error, and what is the byte offset, what is the category, whether it is a parsing or conversion, error code, SQL code, and the column name. Okay, so gender column is giving a problem. And finally, the row number, since we have specified header value equals to 1, so it is primarily the first row which ended with an error. Okay, and the row start line is 2, and which record got rejected? This particular record got rejected. So now you see, by having this validation mode, you manage to see complete error, and this does not load your data. It simply check your data before data loading process. What all values this validation mode parameter takes? So first option is return error, what we have seen here. Second, it takes return n rows. So it will validate first n rows, whether it is 10, 20, 30. Validation mode equals to all error will return all error across all file is specified in the copy command statement. Now let's run the same command with different option. When I use validation mode equals to return 1 rows, this gives a result in a little different format. Okay, good. And if I say return all errors, let's try that. Here, result comes in a tabular format, very similar to return errors. I am going to remove the validation mode and try to load the data with on error equals to continue parameter. So it clearly says out of 5 rows, 4 rows loaded, one particular record failed, which is expected. Okay, good. And it also says the line number 2 is having a problem. So the previous sample file was having only 1 row, and that 1 row was having a data issue. Now I am going to use another customer file which has more than 1 error record, and let's try to understand how does it behave. So let's first run this list command. I'm going to load this 02 which has a total 3 error. So this is my file which has total 10 records. And we will see which all records are having issues while running through the validation mode copy command. Moving back to my Snow site. And this is my copy command, and we do not know which all 3 lines are having an error. I am going to run validation mode equals to return errors. And it has captured all the error without loading the data into the table. First one says the truth is not recognized. Second is a timestamp issue. Third is also timestamp issue. And all those 3 errors had come from the same file. So in case if you are loading the data using a pattern matching from multiple files, you should know which file has thrown error. And again, we have a line number, we have a character, byte offset, and the category. All the data set failed not because of parsing, but they have failed because of the conversion. This is the error code and this is the SQL state. So for timestamp, we got a same SQL state. For Boolean, we got a different SQL state. And here you would be able to understand that customer flag, registration time, and registration time are having issues. And which all record got rejected will be coming into this column. Good. Now let's see how the query profile looks like for this validation kind of copy command. So this opens a new screen, and if you look into this different step, so it does the table scan. So table scan is not skipped. It means the table scan cost will be incurred. The next is your validation process, where the validation is done. And finally, it shows this different attribute like starting from error to rejected record as a column is your step 3. Okay, so this is how the query profile looks like. Going back to my worksheet. Now run the copy command without the data validation mode and let's load the data even though it has error record. Okay, so as expected, the file was having 10 rows, only 7 got loaded, and there are 3 errors seen. One thing to notice, though it has specified 3 errors seen, it is difficult to gather all the information from here, and that's why the validation mode, all errors are very, very important. We loaded the last data file with 1 error record, and we loaded this data set with 3 error record. Let's see how the customer validation table looks like. So we had total 11 record, 4 from last and 7 from this. Looks good. None of the error records are loaded because we specified on error continue. Now let's jump to the next scenario. So this is my another worksheet, and here what we are trying to do, we are trying to load another data file which has many error in a single line, and let's see how the validation mode runs for such scenario. So I'm going to load this customer 03 one line many error CSV file. Let's see how does it look like. So this has only one line and it has multiple error, and we will try to understand how this error looks like when we run the copy command using validation mode. Moving back to my Snow site. This is the same copy command. I have only changed the file name and validation mode equals to return errors. So the copy took roughly 695 milliseconds. Good. You notice I have only one row and I got total 4 records, and each of them are specifying what is the problem. So the first one says it is more than 10 character, expected is 10. It did not recognize the numeric value. It did not recognize the Boolean value having an incorrect timestamp. So timestamp is not recognized in this particular column. Okay. All the errors are coming from the same file and the line numbers are also same. So this feature is a very powerful feature. It can even validate multiple fields within a single row, and it can specify which all fields are failing for loading the data properly in a Snowflake. And all of them failed because of the conversion. And when I say conversion, they could not convert this data set to fit into a Snowflake table because either of the data type or because of the size limit. The data set is also recorded here. So validation mode helps you to understand where the data problem within a row or in a multiple row, which particular field is failing and why it is failing. So before you load many files at one go, you can run the validation mode command and understand what's going wrong. So let's try to load the data using on error continue option. Since I have one row, obviously it will not load the data. Good, and that is what the result says. So far, we have worked with a small CSV file. And now we are going to see how the validation works when we try to load a large data set. And how does it perform and bring the result on screen. The large data file is already loaded under this folder called Ch-08 CSV partition. They are all compressed with gzip. Let's run the list command. So there are total 10 data files, close to 3.5 million data set. There are 3 files named _float, and that has data errors. And we do not know whether the data error belongs to conversion or parsing. And if you see last 3 file number 8, 9 and 10, they are named as a flaw because it has some wrong data set. All other data sets are having the right customer data entries. Since they are gzip, I need to create a different file format called CSV gzip ff. Rest of the parameters are exactly same. Now this is my copy command which will try to load the data into a customer validation from this partition location. Since I have a multiple file, I am not specifying the file name here. I am rather using pattern matching to pick the files, and validation mode is return all errors. Okay, and the file format is the new file format which I just created. Let's run this copy command in validation mode. How the result looks like from this large data set. Does it bring data issues from all the files and how do they look like? Parsing as well as conversion issues and total time it takes to parse the data and run the validation command. So I'm running the copy command. So this profiling pan is not working because it has a lot of data set. So it took 2.3 seconds, pretty fast. So there are total 35.7k rows which are not valid. All the line numbers are specified including the character. If you look into this particular file, it says that the invalid data encountered during decompression of the file number 10, which was intentionally done. So the data is correct, but the compression technique applied to compress this data file was wrong. And let's see what kind of category it belongs to. So it belongs to other category. Here we have a parsing issue. Here we have a other issue. Rest of the category is conversion. This is the power of validation mode. Millions of data set is analyzed at no time and it saved a lot of compute cost. Now I'm changing my validation mode from run all errors to run 10 rows. I'm using the same virtual warehouse, which is extra small load warehouse, and let's see how fast does it bring the data set. Okay, it is clearly telling that registration time isn't having an issue and row number 255 is a problem. Okay, good. Now let's try to load the data with on error equal to continue and see how much time does it take to load the data and display the error. So commented this line and on error is already continue. And let me run this. So it is pretty fast since I have used the same virtual warehouse. Your virtual warehouse cache might be working and it took just 6.2 seconds to process all the data set. Number 8 partially loaded expected. Number 9 partially loaded expected. Number 10 fully failed, no data set is loaded. Now let's go and check the table. So I have 2.8 million rows, which is good. And this is how the data set looks like. Let's go and check copy history from the customer validation table. This is my customer validation table from chapter 8. Let me select a warehouse. Total number of rows is 2.5 million, 76.5 MB of data set. And if you look into the amber and red, it is clearly telling that there are data set which is partially loaded, failed, and fully loaded. All the information is available in this section. So looks good. And it also shows how many rows are parsed and how many rows are failed. This number 10 is completely failed. Now the next question we have it, if I'm running my job as an ETL and data loading has failed, how would I know that for what reason my data has failed? Because I'm not loading my data using my web UI and it is running from a service account. Okay. To fetch what had worked and what failed from your copy command, you can first go and fetch the query ID. For that, you can go to the activity tab, click on the query history, and this will bring all the query history detail. And I am just applying a filter. Now this has brought all the queries which has a copy instruction. And from here, I will get this query ID, click on the copy query ID, and then query ID is copied. I am moving back to my worksheet, and Snowflake provide a function called validate function, which is a table function. And again, if you have not watched how the user-defined function looks like in Snowflake, I would request you to watch this video after completing this playlist. So I can write a select statement from my table function, and I can give the name of the table, and I can give the job ID, which is nothing but a query ID. This is my query ID, which start with 01 and with 25E. And this is what. Now I can run this query, and this will fetch exactly the same result what we have seen when we run the copy command with validation mode. This is the same result what we have seen when we ran the copy command before loading the data. And this has captured everything what has failed and what has successfully, whether the failure has happened because of the conversion or parsing or data loading. So by running this validate table function, you would be able to fetch everything from all the copy failure from your environment. Remember that when you're running this command, you should have access to this customer validation table because all the job history is maintained within the table space. Make sure that you give the right copy command query ID. Otherwise, it will complain that this is not copy statement. And let's try that out. So here, this is my another copy statement which runs on the validation mode. So I'm copying this query ID. It is copied. And I'm just replacing this with this value. So it is start with 01, end with 3A6. Let's run this select statement. And it complains the invalid argument because this particular job ID does not belong to a copy command. So this is not a copy job, and that's why it cannot fetch the result. Okay. So make sure that you give proper job ID or a query ID, and you should have access to the customer validation table, else this particular table function will not work. Now quickly compare how the copy command with validation mode and copy command without validation mode profile screen looks like. So first I will go to the copy command and let's see how does it look like. So if I see, it is a table scan followed by insert followed by result, perfectly fine. If I go to this copy command where it is having a validation mode all error, let's see how does it look like, because it is a successful query. It is start with scan followed by result on screen. So if you look into that, 35.7k is fetched from this one. It means that this validation has got 35.7k errors on the screen, right? I would like to call out one specific thing. When we are running a copy command with validation mode, there is a limitation. The validation mode does not support the transformation queries, or I would say select queries within the copy command. In the previous episode, what we have seen how to deduplicate using the select distinct statement. I'm trying to execute the same approach where it is running on the validation mode, and let's see what happens. So it complains validation mode does not support copy with transform. Okay, so this is one of the important limitation. When you are designing your ETL, make sure your validation mode should not run with a transformation state, else your query will fail. Before we proceed further, I would like to share something with you. Snowflake Cloud Data Warehouse is the future. It is such a powerful platform with great features that it will eventually replace many legacy platforms. I have been adding simple and real life scenario based videos and playlists so you all can learn. And yes, you don't need to buy any expensive courses. All my contents are freely available in this channel. My channel audience really enjoys them. And yes, your success and your feedback really matters to me. So don't hesitate to share it. We have seen and learned a lot. What we haven't seen so far, how to deal with null values while loading data into Snowflake, how to handle different date, time and timestamp formats during data loading process, data loading best practices, do's and don'ts, especially with CSV file formats, and it will save a lot of your time and compute cost, and many more interesting topics. They are all covered in other videos available in this playlist. So continue to follow this space, and if you think this channel content is helping you, do me a favor by subscribing to this channel. And yes, don't forget to press the like button so YouTube will recommend the next best Snowflake video from Data Engineering Simplified. Thank you for listening so patiently. Keep learning and keep growing.